my YouTube family. I know it's been a while since I've been here, but Cece is back to Let's Chat. And today, I've been gone a while, and today I was thinking about, I usually do my broadcast on Sunday, so I'm gonna keep with the tradition, and Sundays is going to be my day. And I wanted to start this one off with something more motivating. I met this young lady out at yoga one day. And, I love young people. I love to see the things they do. And, I just admire the millennials. So I seen this young girl, and she was so inspirational. And I asked her her name. She said her name was Nina Simone. I mean, not Nina and Simone, her last name, Nina Simone. And I just thought that was so original, Nina Simone. I can't remember. I think she told me how she got that name or why, her mother put it together. But it just was so beautiful. I think that name is so beautiful. So anyway, I got to talking to her, and she was telling me that she was in urban studies. When I went to college, I know most people, especially people of color, they went to college to study things like psychology, uh, art majors, uh, English. I mean, just different majors that I wouldn't say is easy, but broad. I could say broad. And when college students, uh, me alike, I went to marketing and human resources. But when you go in those majors that's so broad, when you come out looking for a job, it is really saturated. It's really saturated, and you have to compete. And most times, just like myself, you wind up giving up taking a job that you don't want just to make some money because it's the competition is so fierce. So this young lady, she had told me she was in urban studies. I just thought that was so great, especially somebody of color. You know, in this day and age, I feel like we need to spread out and go into fields that is different. That way it gives us a chance to do the things that we really want to do. Now, let me tell you a little bit about her. Like I say, her name is Nina Simone. I hope I say her last name right. Uh, Eccleston. She's a fourth year in industrial design student studying at the Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta. She was raised in north of Atlanta in Beaufort. I know most people heard of Beaufort, Georgia, that live in Beaufort, Georgia, with plans to graduate around spring of 2022 with the bachelor degree from science and the College of Design. So I'm gonna bring her on, and she's gonna tell you the rest a little bit about herself, and introduce her major to all of us to give us because urban studies, you see your city, each city that you in, how did it get that way? Why did they plan it that way? What would you like to see happen? Well, this young lady is part of what makes that happen. So I'm gonna bring her on. Hi
Hello,
Nina, how you doing?
Cece. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate getting the opportunity to share what I do with your followers and fans. So, first and foremost, thank you so much. And it's great to see you back on the
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah, it's been a long time, and it's an honor just to get you to for this today to start us off with a motivational topic because in the past we had very controversial topics because that was during the election and everything. So
Right.
now we want to focus on that the election over with, and I know we got COVID and other things to focus on, but we want to get something more uplifting and things that to make people stay woke and
Yeah.
to for younger people of color, that may be interested in going to college and what they want to do with their lives. Like I said, we have seen that is more to life than becoming rappers, singers, actresses, which nothing is wrong with those professions. But it's time for us to, you know, go into more
Broaden the scope.
specific fields. Yeah. So first, to start us off, I told a little bit about your history, but like I say, your name is so beautiful.
Thank
Where
you.
did that come from?
So it is very similar to Nina Simone, the singer, but it's Nia Simone. So it's
Nia. Okay.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
no worries though. My mom, I think my parents wanted to name me like Nia and Simone. They
Mm-hmm.
came up with it together, my mom and my dad, and my mom's hairstylist was like, "Oh, you could just hyphenate it and just have it Nia Simone, and that could just be her first name, and she doesn't need a middle name." So that's what
Mm-hmm.
my parents did, and it's really been one of the things I'm most grateful for about like the best gift my parents ever gave me was my name because I agree it is kind of like an attention starter for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
but
beautiful. No
yeah,
middle name.
no middle name.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
but my name is Nia Simone Eccleston, and I study industrial design at Georgia Tech, and it is really adjacent to urban design and urban studies. And in fact, the reason why I was at the yoga class where I met you was because I wanted to learn more about
Mm-hmm.
Woodruff Park and the downtown Atlanta community because I'm in a co-design studio and we're trying to bring up the vibrancy, bring back the vibrancy of Woodruff Park since, COVID-19 kind of struck everybody and the
Yeah.
atmosphere has changed since then. So I've been going to the park at least 7 times now with other classmates and just like observing, seeing how people interact with the park, just trying to talk to different people who use the park and
Mm-hmm.
assess the current situation before we decide what would probably be best to design for. So yeah, that's a little bit about the project that I'm doing. I know industrial design is kind of a confusing major to understand. People usually think it has to do with like industrial systems and
Yeah.
warehouses, but industrial design is, as defined by the Industrial Design Society of America, the professional practice of designing products, devices, objects, and services that are used by millions of people every day. So when you think about the Apple iPhone or even websites that you use or how you navigate a museum, there are
Mm-hmm.
like designers thinking about how you interact with that experience. And there was research that went into the decision making and the way something looks and feels and sounds. And so with my major, I get a lot of opportunity to explore and do research into like how people already perceive their day-to-day life and where new objects or services can be implemented in their existing day-to-day structure.
That's very good. I also picked up a little definition for people that is kind of confused on how it relates to urban studies, and I'm gonna put that on for a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, be at his best, Okay, so you said how people use things and what people want. So do you have to go up and interview people, or
Yeah,
how do you
all the
approach
time.
people?
Yeah, so there's different ways to try to use research to understand how people interact with their everyday systems and services. One way is just
Hmm.
like directly interviewing them and being like, hey, how do you feel about the park? I know I've talked to some people who claim to be unhoused, who lived at Woodruff Park, and talked to them and said, what's your experience with the park? Is it positive or negative? And you can, culminate all of that information and create
Hmm.
what we call journey maps and
Okay.
personas. So it's like,
Hmm.
okay, based off of all this information I got from all these different people in this one group, this is like sort of the needs of that community, or this is what they like and dislike, and that can help with your decision making further down the line. I've also done a lot of just observation. So you're not really asking any questions, you're just watching and seeing if what people say in interviews matches what they actually do in real life. Because a lot of times,
Okay.
what people say, do, and think don't always align. So design really challenges you to make sure
Yeah.
those things happen. Because not everybody
So
knows
you,
exactly what they want.
yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
So you go and you may just observe, just be observing people.
Yeah, just like look at what, yeah,
Hmm.
just look at what people
That's a
are
good
doing and
skill
how
to
they
have. Just go there and just observe. And people will probably do what's more natural to them if they don't know that they're being studied. So you are
yeah.
correct in that. Yes.
And I think that in terms of what you were saying earlier about getting more people of color and young people of color into industrial design, I think it's really unfortunate how there's actually an Instagram account called Where Are the Black Designers? Because
Yes.
in the summer of last summer, when everything, there were a lot of protests and there's a lot of discourse, people started looking around and was like, oh, the people who are making decisions about what we buy and the systems that we engage
Hmm.
with don't look like us. And so there should be more black designers in the conversation. And so I think if you are young and you like to sketch, sketching is a huge part of the design process. Drawing, there's a lot of
Hmm.
young black kids who love to draw. If you just love talking to people or even like learning new software and using your creativity all the time, industrial design is
Yeah.
perfect for like so many young kids that I know. And it's just unfortunate a lot of us just don't know it exists until we're in college or out of college.
Yeah, I agree. I agree because when you're in high school, even myself, when I went to high school, I went to a majority of white high school, and when my senior year or my even my junior year, you really need to get started in your junior year. I didn't have the guidance counselors that took me aside and took really most black students aside and try to gear them and show them different opportunities in different fields. It's a test that you could take that kind of shows you your personality. I can't
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of it
The
right on
Myers
top of my.
Briggs.
Yes, yes, that's it exactly. I didn't know about that till I was in college. But
Mm-hmm.
we have a lot of talented people,
Right.
very talented people. But like you say, you need to focus it on where you could use it. That's going to bring you happiness. That's going to bring you money. Something you enjoy doing. And most of us go to college just because our parents tell us to go to college and just to get a degree. And you're not happy. And like I say, you go into these broad fields, and then you find yourself you competing with pretty much 90% of the people that got a business degree, and you wind up taking a job somewhere because you got to feed yourself. But how great is it when you could go into fields and see people in the boardroom that you could relate to, that's your color, and have be just as educated, just have the talent that you do. Now I'm going to ask you, in your school, of what percentage of people of color, and when I say people of color, they could be, Asian, Latino, what percentage is women? What percentage is just people of color in general that's in your field?
Yeah, in the industrial design college in particular, we actually have a pretty good distribution from male to female. I think it's the
Hmm.
best of all the colleges at Georgia Tech, like near 50-50.
Yeah.
In terms of racially, I don't know the exact demographics. I know that it's growing since I
Hmm.
started because
Okay. Well, that's
when I was
good.
a freshman, I was the only like one of maybe one or two people that I saw of like 70 plus kids in my class. But I'm definitely noticing more, and kids are starting to like transfer in from other majors. I think a lot of kids, whether black or white or Asian, sometimes will go to tech to do engineering, thinking that engineering is going
Hmm.
to be like design, and then they realize
Yeah.
like, oh, this is not the fun creative stuff I want to do, so they'll switch in. I know for
Hmm.
me, I knew for a fact when I started college that I didn't want to do engineering. I didn't really like math, so I was like, what of
Hmm.
any of these majors looks the most like creative? And industrial
Hmm.
design just sounded that way. I was like, maybe I won't have to take
Yeah.
that many math classes. So I just really just got lucky because I didn't know
Hmm.
what the major was either. I had no idea. I didn't know
Yeah.
anyone who was a designer. I just knew I was going to go to tech because it was the only school I could really afford. And I knew that was the
Yeah.
only major that seemed like most adjacent to anything I would want to do. So I feel
Yeah.
like I got really lucky. But I feel like there's a lot more exposure happening because I'm starting to see a lot of growth racially. But I would say,
Hmm.
in terms of like um, the analytics for specifically, I'm not sure, but there is a huge racial disparity without a doubt.
Yeah.
You can look around and see
Hmm.
it, especially amongst Black and Hispanic populations in the institute, but in the College of Design as well.
Yeah. And I know, like I mentioned, back in the day, guidance counselors didn't help us much. You are much younger. How is it now? You in Beaufort, Georgia. I'm quite sure that's majority of white out there in Beaufort, Georgia.
Yeah, it's
So
it's more diverse than most parts of Georgia, but yeah, it's still
yeah,
predominantly white.
it's getting there. But I remember when Beaufort, Georgia was like, because even when I lived a little bit out, not as far as Beaufort, everybody was like, "What you doing out there?"
Right.
So so I know it's growing. But as far as your high school and in 2021, do you think the kids, the minority kids, are getting the guidance that they should get when they're in juniors or seniors right now?
Right. In regards to my specific high school, I would very adamantly say no. I think there's a lot of
Hmm.
really archaic structures still in place at the high school I went to, Mountain View High School. I would say I got, I think the focus is a little less so on race though, and more so on like, what are these students providing to us?
Hmm.
We were all forced, the kids who placed well were always forced to take AP classes even if they didn't want to because the
Yes.
school would make money from it. Kids who like had good grades and could go to good colleges got more attention from the counselors than kids who didn't. Like those
Yeah.
disparities were just very like abhorrently obvious. I was sort of lucky because I felt like I got a lot of the guidance I needed from the counselors, but I
Mhm.
also like didn't I grew up, I was lucky enough to like have a mom who always like sat down, made sure I got my homework done, I had good grades, like I was on track to do like get good scholarships and stuff. So I think that they were paying attention to that because that says something
Mhm.
about the school. But if you're not advantageous to the school, you almost don't
Yeah.
get the same amount of resources. So I
Yeah.
would I would definitely say that there are still issues and just like archaic forms of like classism and racism still embedded in the high school institutions. And that's why it's really sad because a lot of kids who are probably really that I meet or that I know or remember from high school that I'm like would be really good at industrial design never got an
Yeah.
opportunity because if you can't afford to go to tech, like there's that's the only really school in Georgia besides SCAD, which is a private Savannah
Yeah.
College of Art and Design, which is a private school and
Mhm.
is even more expensive than Georgia Tech to pursue that. So there's
Yeah.
not many opportunity to like engage or to explore that side just through
Yeah.
college. I mean, now there's like
Mhm.
certificates to get your way into like design careers, but if you're
Mhm.
talking about just the straight high school to college path, it's kind of like binary in a sense and difficult to get into.
Yeah. And that is kind of sad that it's still prevalent in this day that you know you pretty much have to knock down the door of a guidance counselor to say, "Hey, I exist," and to guide me, because that's what they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Literally guide you. Because kids don't know. You know.
Right.
So yeah. So you know, I encourage anyone out there that's in high school now, if your guidance counselor, and you may not be in an AP class, but that doesn't mean you don't have skill, and that doesn't mean you don't have
Exactly.
talent. Everybody learn a different way. But knock on that door and ask questions, because there's things out there, and like you said, you couldn't afford but certain schools, but they do have grants out there. Some grants, you may not think of it as much, $2,000, $3,000, but every bit helps. Some of them you just have to write one piece of paper. Some grants that and scholarships are just if you belong to a single parent household and minority, there's plenty of them, but you have to research, yourself. And like you mentioned, your mom was on you. I encourage all parents to not be helicopter moms, but be more like a little tiger mom, to make sure that that your
Right,
kid is doing what they doing what they supposed to do. Because once you put them out there in that college, they have to defend for themselves. And you're a
right.
prime product of that, so I commend your parents. So
Thank
you
you.
said you're going to graduate fairly soon next year.
Hmm.
So what do you plan on doing? Do you have a specific job in mind, or a different a company you want to do an internship? What's your plans?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I do have a couple things in mind. I'm really just trying to find whatever sticks at this point,
Hmm.
because I get a lot of advice that your first job doesn't have to be your best job. I know that I like doing research and development, or doing even like social good design kind of things, like working with
Yeah.
parks and I really appreciate the studios that I'm in right now. So I'm just applying to everything at this
Yeah.
point. Just trying to learn new skills, really, in the research and development department.
I pulled up. I seen this website that it was saying, what could I become if with the field that you're in. I'm gonna pull
Hmm.
it up just to show it.
Hmm. And yeah, to that point, too, as a reminder to young kids who are interested in design, if you like making things and you just enjoy making things or thinking about how things are made, thinking about how or why people interact with things, and you feel like you're a creative person, and on top of that, you like to draw or sketch, I feel like you'd be perfect for industrial design. You don't have to be good at math. You don't have to necessarily have any specific skill. So I think sometimes that draws people away from doing certain things. Like, I can't be a doctor because I'm not good at chemistry or biology. I can't, be an engineer because I don't like math. But this is really a major where I feel like you can just use whatever strengths you have to best see what you want out of your projects or out of your concepts.
Yeah, good encouraging words. Now this is a website I pulled up. What could I
Mm-hmm.
become if I study industrial design?
Mm-hmm.
And it tells a little bit about the different fields you could go into. Industrial designer, this is probably an average salary of 58,000, but it depends on what region you in, and experience and everything else. But you could become a researcher, and that's similar to what you were saying,
Yeah,
how you
that's
do your
what I want to
studies,
do. Mm-hmm.
yeah. um Furniture designer, automotive designer, packages designer, TV theater set. I mean, it's so many things that you could do with this. That's just awesome. I was also reading. I was also reading that they said that you could be an event planner.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what people want. You know what people are looking for. You know the trends. Um, so
I
it's
would
so many
say
things that you could do.
Yeah, I would say that the
Hmm.
industrial design major teaches you how to communicate and show your ideas in an appealing way that makes sense to other people. It's almost like a
Yeah,
communications major. You learn how to
yeah.
present your work, you learn how to refine your work, you learn how to refine your sketches, or even refine your research that you like see, the observations that you do, and the mapping that you do to understand how people work. You learn how to refine that so you can communicate that to other people so that they'll want to hire you or they'll want to implement your
Mhm.
ideas into an existing system or create a whole new business. So, like kids who want to be entrepreneurs, like this is a great major for people who want to be entrepreneurs because essentially you just learn how to explain yourself a little bit better. Um, and that's like in communication, that's an invaluable skill. So,
Mhm. Okay. Well, that's awesome. And I want to thank you for taking time with me tonight on my first day back. And hopefully,
yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. And I want to encourage everyone. I know people going to be looking at this later on. Please like, share, and please subscribe to my podcast. There's a couple of interesting topics that I plan to speak about. I want to go interview people, but with COVID and things, going out is kind of iffy about that. But we'll talk about current events. But like I say, I want to thank you, and I'm going to say good night, and I wish you the best of your career, and give me that yoga information.
I will. Always.
Okay, good night, Nia.
Good night.